It's the Innovation Podcast with Mark Reed Edwards and Garnet Harriman. Let's start the show.
All right, Garnet, it's just you and me this time.
Great. At least I know the company will be good.
And the discussion will be scintillating.
No doubt.
Thought it would be an interesting idea to look back on the first 23 episodes of the iPod and kind of go through some of the things that we learned. And we launched in January, and you were at CES, and you got to interview a bunch of really interesting people about interesting technologies and companies. And one of the really fascinating ones was Etergo, that makes the Tesla of scooters. And I thought that was fascinating. Did you actually see this scooter, or was it not there?
Oh yeah, we saw it. We looked around at the battery pack and the overall design. We got to sit on it. We didn't get to ride it, but we did get up close and personal and touchy feely with the actual prototype. And it was a working prototype. It's already being sold in several countries in Europe.
Yeah.
So that. It's a beautiful, sleek machine.
Are you going to buy one for your new palatial estate out on the West Coast?
No, actually, I will not. I am planning to do a lot of walking and a lot of hiking and a lot of running. So, much as I like the design of the machine, I will probably not be having one. But, our mutual friend and colleague, James from Exism.
He was enthusiastic about them, right?
Yeah, he's what you would consider a car guy. And so that excitement about cars, everything cars, extends to his excitement about everything EV and everything electric scooter. So he's literally the one who took me by the hand and dragged me across the room to see this thing. He was super excited, and then proceeded to have a long and engaging and excited discussion with the founder and the CEO.
Yeah. That was an interesting discussion, and it was an interesting place for us, I think, to launch the iPod.
Yeah,
because
exactly right.
The first couple of full episodes that we did were on experiential marketing, and James has been involved in CES for a while, and he was one of the first guests, James, along with Chris Clegg, on 2 mammoth episodes that we did to kick off on experiential marketing. And that seems to be a thread through a lot of what we talk about, the experience, whether we're talking to Geralyn Breig about AnytownUSA, Panos about Zenus and facial recognition. There's that kind of thread that runs through pretty much everything we talk about. So it was interesting to kick off the first full episodes with lengthy discussion about experiential marketing.
Yeah, and I think our choice of episodes 1 and episodes 2, or essentially the first batch of episodes and then the second batch of episodes, are very much indicative of our collective sort of macro view of the world, and certainly the view of this podcast, right? So, multiple episodes from CES to kick things off, and that is, arguably the mecca of world and global innovation. At least they try to portray themselves as that. I would argue that CES is the mecca of East Asian markets innovation side. Every second or third person there was from Taiwan, South Korea, mainland China, and a handful of others, East and Southeast Asian countries. It's hugely Asian contingent.
Yeah.
So, and then the second cluster was around experience and experiential marketing and the role that plays in an evergreen, mission-critical business function, marketing, right? So our thesis there, at least the podcast thesis, is basically that experiential and experiences are the future of brands.
Yeah.
And that there's no separation between brands and experiences. So, yeah, those first 2 batches of podcast episodes, I think, are very, very much, the origin story, right, of this podcast.
So I think another interesting thread through the early episodes was talking about the USA and products made in the USA, and also economic opportunity in the USA. And so we talked with Geralyn Breig, who founded AnytownUSA and has a heritage of working at some of the biggest consumer brands probably in the world. And that was really interesting. The website's fascinating. The products you can get on there that are made in the USA are pretty unique because, before a site like this or Etsy and some of the other sites, you couldn't get this stuff made in the USA. And then we talked with Peter Stuart about opportunity zones, which is something that's near and dear to your heart. There's a connection between these two because it's about economic opportunity in the U.S., whether it's a merchant like AnytownUSA giving a channel to market for makers, or whether it's this new law that enables areas of cities and out in the country that have had economic hard times to start revitalizing themselves. And I think the two are connected, don't you?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And yeah, it's super explicit in the mission statement of AnytownUSA, right? All made in the US products, companies, entrepreneurs. It's perhaps a little less explicit in the opportunity zone because there are actually places outside of the continental US where opportunity zones are in effect and where the statutes apply. They're not foreign countries, but they're still outside of the continental U.S., like Puerto Rico and Hawaii and Guam. And it's interesting to see that so much of these activities that we used to associate with, to me, I'm drawing a line between the decentralization of startup technology and VC funding and the rise of opportunity zones, because I think as you spread outward from Silicon Valley, Seattle, and New York, people start to realize, including investors and entrepreneurs, that basically, you can make great technology in everywhere from Chattanooga to San Juan, Puerto Rico. So it's a good thing to see that being supported with the IRS considerations that come from the opportunity zone statutes.
Yeah, and another interesting discussion that we had over a couple of episodes was with Daniel Ray of Ultimate Guitar. And, that technology is really interesting if you play guitar. But I think the most fascinating part of it was that this is a global brand. It's the leader in guitar tablature and chords and music notation, I guess is the term you could use, around the globe. And it was bootstrapped. To me, that's like a vein I think that we will tap that we haven't really fully explored, the idea of bootstrapping a company that becomes hugely successful.
That is pretty unusual in a lot of ways. And I'm hoping that we see more of it. But, it's not overly common. A lot of folks, bootstrap things and then basically run out of steam.
Right.
So it's good to see something that actually was bootstrapped and then actually scaled, that was successful enough to merit scaling and that could continue growing without outside capital. So
yeah.
I'm sure they made sacrifices along the way that, maybe ate a lot more peanut butter and jelly or a lot more rice and beans or whatever it is they were eating, when they might have been able to go out and raise outside money and live a little bit better, pay themselves a little bit more. So I'm guessing that period of self-sacrifice, was a little longer, but, kudos to them. It should be a great template for a lot of other entrepreneurs who are looking for an alternative to VC capital.
Yeah, and I wonder whether their location in Kaliningrad, Russia, whether that was an ingredient in their ability to bootstrap themselves. If they had been in, New York or the Boston area or Silicon Valley, I just wonder whether they would have had a lot of pressure to scale faster, invest more money, and get venture capital.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think that, the old thing is necessity is the mother of invention, right? So if you're in a place that basically is super isolated and where the options as far as like outside capital and all of the, all of the mythology and all of the activities and the hand wringing that people go through to try to raise money If that's not even an option, then it kind of forces you to focus in on what really is the goal of the venture in the first place, which is to make some fucking money.
Not to put too fine a point on it.
Right.
One of the other things that you and I talk a lot about is investing to make a difference, impact investing, and doing something to make the world a bit better. And we had the chance to talk with Kai Stinchcombe, who founded and is CEO of TrueLink Financial, which we went into thinking, oh, this is elder tech, which is great. But then we found out in discussing with him that it's great technology for people with disabilities. It's great technology to help recovering addicts. It's just has a lot of application outside of just being an interesting financial tool for elders.
Yeah, I am somewhat doubtful that Kai Stinchcombe himself would actually think of what he's doing as impact, or impact-oriented, or social entrepreneurship, or social venture. It's an excellent way of looking at it, and I think he basically thinks of it as, this holy grail of like an untapped, underserved market that, if you do right by them, in terms of creating the service and the technology offering, you're going to make a shitload of money. And, that's his basic hypothesis. And, it's so far so good for him, but it definitely has an impact.
And he said it rose from him realizing that his grandmother needed help. And sometimes those ideas that you internalize, that you see in your own life, you think, well, why isn't someone doing this? Well, I guess I'll do it.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to see how TrueLink Financial serves the addict or recovering addict community in particular, because that strikes me as one of these strange market opportunities. Given what's happened over the last decade and the consequences from such a large segment of the population being, subjected to these highly addictive medicines and widely available medicines, and in some ways illegally by Big Pharma, has created a bubble, essentially, right? It's a glut of people who might need this kind of service. So his timing is just about perfect. And I'm really curious to see how that piece of it in particular unfolds over the next 5 years.
And also whether it encourages big players like Citibank and Chase to just say, well, we could do that in a few weeks of development.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. The ultimate irony for Kai's, market insights and the business that he's building around it could be as simple as this. Could be as simple as his company being funded by a pharmaceutical company, as a way of diversifying their service portfolio.
All right, next time, Garnet and I will finish our review of what we learned in the first 23 episodes of the iPod. In the weeks and months to come, we'll chat with Mark Gallagher about innovation in F1. Mark Friedler of AB InBev will be here, and Emmanuel Del Carlo of Fair B&B will join us. We also have chats planned with Tyler Lorenzen, a former NFL tight end who's now running Purus, which is at the center of the craze around plant protein in food. Plus, we plan to chat with Jonathan Webb of App Harvest, a company that's using traditional agriculture techniques with current technology to build what it calls farming now in Appalachia and the world's largest sustainable greenhouses in the middle of coal country. Some great stuff to come, so stay tuned.
Thanks for joining Garnet and Mark on the Innovation Podcast. Visit innovationpodcast.co to subscribe and listen to other episodes.